I'm here. I'm emceeing with Jordan our Civic Tech Summer Showcase. I'm so excited to be having you all here to see our great, inspiring projects. The we received so many applications, and we had to turn some people away. But I think we selected some projects that will really excite you all. They're across a variety of domains, but all of them relate to civic technology. They're all about using technology to serve our community here in New York City. And so on a personal note, I joined the civic tech field about 4 years ago now. BetaNYC was my sort of foray into civic tech. I went to a BetaNYC event, and I was personally inspired by the projects that I saw. And so I'm really excited here to be given the opportunity to show projects to you. So first, before we go into the projects, I'll hand it off to Jordan to talk a little bit about BetaNYC.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Rob. Hey, everybody. I'm Jordan. Been around for a minute, and now I recognize some faces out there, so glad to see you all. So I'm the co-chair of governance for the BetaNYC Associate Board, which is a group of volunteers who support events like this around civic tech and digital literacy in New York City. So BetaNYC, as many of you know, is a civic tech nonprofit with the mission to make it easier for all New Yorkers to access information and use open data in New York City to improve their communities and the city, and to help hold governing bodies accountable for the work that they are doing. And at the beginning of every BetaNYC event and presentation, we start with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land politically designated as New York City to be the homeland of the Lenape or the Lenape-Hoking people who were violently displaced from this land as a result of European settler colonialism. And we wish to honor and respect the histories of the Indigenous and First Nations people who once inhabited and protected the land that we now call home. This land acknowledgement is to demonstrate our commitment to educating ourselves and sharing information with our communities about enduring consequences of inequality and settler colonialism. So BetaNYC engages with New Yorkers in three main ways. Number one, public interest tech workforce development. So how are we raising young technologists to participate in this ecosystem? Two, civic and data services. So we build tools and we support government agencies and other civic technologists to be able to use technology to make better services and better serve their communities. And finally, we do public data literacy programs, so supporting people to know how to use open data, or that open data even exists. Some of our main programming, which many of you will be familiar with, School of Data, the big Open Data Conference that happens every spring as a part of Open Data Week. Discovering New York City open data classes where you can learn about how to use open data sets. And then finally, City Camp NYC, which is actually our next upcoming event on September 19th at Hunter College. Hope a lot of you already have tickets. If you don't, early bird tickets are ending soon, so you better get on that. Okay, and so in addition to all of the programming that BetaNYC does, we have been launching the BetaBuilders program, which I hope a lot of you have already heard about. So the BetaBuilders program is supposed to be a community of all of us coming together to share ideas like the ones that we're going to be sharing tonight. And it's a space where people can come together to talk about civic tech and be techno-optimists in a space full of other techno-optimists. Come to gatherings where maybe you get to do something tech-focused that you wouldn't have otherwise done, like learning about cool projects that people are doing focused on civic tech. And then finally, to share those tools. So being able to get feedback. Maybe you've shared something on our Discord server or our Reddit subreddit looking for support or ideas on tools that you've built. you haven't, you should join BetaBuilders. So this is how, this is like the structure of how you can join and what the kind of levels are. And you can do that at beta.nyc/donate. So I hope everybody joins so that we can all come together for more events like this in the future. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it back to Sara to introduce the lightning talks. Thank you all.
So yeah, let's take a minute to sit on this. Reception here might be a little bit spotty, but if you want to take out your phone, take a picture, or navigate to this website, help support BetaNYC. Great. Okay. Now, lightning talks. So we have, like I said, across a variety of domains, we're starting off with Parking Reimagined. Then we will have the Riverkeeper data portal, CityScroll, Codenow.nyc, and finally closing off with Good Standing. So I'll be very, I don't know, these are going to be some great presentations. Gibson, if you want to come on up and start with Parking Reimagined. Still working out. Cool.
Okay, thanks. Yep.
You can click here or just on it.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Gibson. I am a product manager, or I used to work as a product manager and also a city planner. I currently work with Pop Wheels. I'm not sure if you heard of them. They do like battery swapping for delivery workers, and Floodline, which does and provides like community resources for bids and small homeowners for flooding related issues, kind of like the flooding that's kind of ongoing right now. So this project that I worked on, I call Parking Reimagined as a way to take a look at and reimagine what a parking space can be. So typically a standard parking space is around 8 by 20 feet or about 160 square feet. And I think over the past like 2 to 3 years in New York City, have talked a lot about parking, especially in regards to housing. This is a map on the left. You can see about like parking zones are designated per the city of Yes. And you can see as the further out from the main Manhattan Island, we start to see more and more room for more parking space that has to be developed with housing. And then on the right, you can kind of see that obviously matches up directly with like where cars normally owned in New York City. Parking in general, I think, has been talked a lot about over the past few years, and a lot of it can be attributed initially to Donald Shoup, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But he said that parking supply is not constricting demand, rather destroys the attractiveness of urban areas by creating dead spaces where there could be vibrant streetscapes. So my presentation, kind of the project, was really less focused on the data itself, since there's a lot of people that talk about what is involved and what can be done better in regards to the parking space, but to help the community better visualize what that parking space could be instead, since a lot of it is hard to understand if you abstract it out to those numbers. As you can see, like open plans, Michael Sutherland has talked a little bit about this. He's mentioned that for every 1.2 parking spaces, 1 unit of parking counts and loss is from a cost perspective. And so this is just a visual in general to see like the parking spaces we have in New York City can be represented in almost like 20 Central Park sizes. Was just like an easy way to help visualize and understand how much parking there is in New York City. So kind of the same concept. We kind of see, I think, like this is artist and illustrator Bridget Brown. I'm not sure if many of you know, but created this book, a children's book, maybe like in 2014, to show you what else a parking space could be. So our parking spot can be for a car. It could be for 20 people that fit inside. It could be a grocery store, a row of books for a library, fits in tables like a parklet or a garden. So I think really the question that I'm trying to answer here is like, what is better for the community? 2 cars, or can we fit biking, seating, trash bins, whatever. And we've already started to see what that could look like. I mean, I'm sure many of you know over the past 6 years, the change in regards to like the positivity that we saw from having a lot of these outdoor dining spaces was such a mass improvement. But unfortunately, over the past, I would say like 2 or 3 years, it was difficult to really get those spaces back just because of where things should be stored. And of course, I'm presuming that we're going to actually see that change happen over the next 2 years with this new city council approval. Today, when we talk about the curb, this is like a photo from Manhattan Community Board number 7. there's often big debate as to like what that parking space can be. And it's often challenged because folks that come to these community board meetings to talk about what that space could look like are often the same folks that either want more parking or they want it to be something else but can't really like show what that something else looks like. And I think technically there's a huge street manual, design manual for how you could approach this, but it's often hard to read, and I'm sure not many people are going to spend the time like I am to dig through a design manual that's dug deep on the DOT website. I'm not sure how many of you have heard this story, but at Community Board 6 in Manhattan, there's a project that was talked about to replace what Park Ave could look like. And then they presented two proposals where it would essentially either be a park or it would be a bike lane with less of a park on the inside. But a Redditor, I think, used AI to essentially generate, I'm not sure if you know who Miser is or Alex Duncan, presented this project where essentially, what if we saw those two projects come together? And this was actually the most excited project that most people saw at a community board, but it wasn't the one that was technically presented by any DOT or city member. And there are also some folks online talking about it. So this is from Matt Choi, who's also another urban planner, who used AI to essentially visualize what would look like with a park if it had more tree space and increased amount of housing in that same spot on the right. And so this is all to say there's a lot of tools nowadays that can help someone help visualize and understand what that space could look like. But the ability to actually implement and talk about it is still not there since they don't know what the right vocabulary is. They don't have an understanding of the true process or what are the costs and the financing and feasibility to actually get these projects done. And that's often the gap that's seen when we're talking about parking. And so my hope was to visualize and see what are community planning tools that could actually make this easier to understand. There's a lot online that I think many of you probably know about. There's this one called Street Mix, 3D Street, Floor Planner, Street Plan. There's physical ones where you can bring to your community board. There's Mixity for like an AR version. I don't know how useful that is, but it's there. And I think I saw this Reddit post that kind of helped inspire this idea, which essentially was one of those same projects, but from a visual like overhead point of view, but mixing that together with the 3D visualization. And so I did some research for like a grad school program in which I talked a little bit about parking in general, and I wanted to create what that visual would look like from like a floor plan perspective, and I drafted this up myself to see like what would it look like in that same space, and I thought it'd be very fun to create a version of that was online for anyone to use. And so the point for who this is for the residents, really to be able to communicate with the planners, and these are all the things that we're hopefully going to be able to talk about through that use. So the stages of how I like to think about what this tool will eventually be used will be to help someone imagine and then validate and hopefully plan and deliver all these different stages of a parklet that can hopefully change in a parking space. So I'm not going to actually walk through it today just because I have a short amount of time, but just to give a quick snapshot, you would essentially step through and decide like how many parking spaces you'd want to actually choose to change. What would you like to hopefully fill that space with? And here are some templates for ideas. And this would be the open space that you're allotted. And so you would essentially step through and click each of the different elements, drag something on there, and on the right, it would help show how much space you're taking up, what is the potential cost that would be, as well as what is the land use for that distribution. So this would be an example of what that might look like if you were to choose to do something like a garden. And my hope was that you could also print this out and present it and talk about it at your community board meeting. So that way this format would be very easy to share with anybody instead of having to just share someone a link. It'd be something that could be printable as well. And so this was something that I had a good opportunity to talk with someone about at Menlo Park, in which she shared this community tool that she had used in order to work with folks to help present at a community board meeting. What are some of the potential public space usage? What's the local economy usage? And I want to take that same idea and make it into a worksheet on Parking Reimagined. So there's a workshop kit as well that hopefully can pair with that. So you print out the elements and you talk about it with your design. So this would be a worksheet for what that might look like, and someone could physically use this in that space. I was hoping to print out a big version of that, but I just did not want to walk it through the rain.
Yeah.
And the hope is that you can also pair with other parking tools that exist today that are more data oriented. So that way they can compare this against what are the budget, what's the financing, and what are the steps to get there. My hope is to eventually dive deeper into other like specific cities, since obviously every place we know is very different at approaching what this problem might look like. And I wanted to just hopefully compare it against some of the other tools that exist out there today, and hopefully use it as a place that's more actionable and more general use for everybody. These are just some things that I'm hoping to work on. If you have thoughts or like other ideas, eventually when you try the tool out, that would be great to know and chat with me later. I want to give a huge shout out to the folks at Parking Reform Network who provided a lot of initial feedback when I first tested this a month ago. And yeah, there's a QR code if you want to test it out. It's not the most mobile friendly, so it's funny to ask you to scan the QR code, but it's for the website, which is just parking-reimagined.com. But yes, please use it on your desktop since it's mostly on a bigger scale. And thank you for listening to my presentation.
Great. Thank you, Gibson. Yeah. If folks want to take a moment and scan this QR code over here, I took a look at Gibson's website, and it's really simple to use, honestly, in some ways. And it's just so simple to see how space that is used for parking could be used for something else. Next up, we have John Sucuoglu. John Sucuoglu. Thank you. And he is presenting the Riverkeeper data portal.
Should I use this or that one?
What? This one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, both of them. All right. Hello. My name is John, and I'll talk to you about a project that we've been working on for about a year now, together with Riverkeeper. But before we start, we are, me and Sara, my partner, with Studio 2263. We are a data analytics and a design company, and most of the projects that we work on are very research-based. A lot of our clients come to us with very difficult data sets to communicate, and we help them, or they help us solve problems regarding them and how to communicate. I'll talk about it, what to visualize, what to visualize. So through these difficult problems and data sets, we tend to develop expertise on several subjects, and water quality, as I'll talk about today, has become one of our expertise. This is, I think, like maybe 5th or 6th water quality related project that we've done in the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm not actually sure the QR code works. I forgot to test it, but you can try. So the Riverkeeper data portal is live. It's been launched last year. We are trying to bring together everything we can find about the water quality around the Hudson River's watershed into a single location. It's quite varied, from like drinking water providers' annual reports to sampling that Riverkeeper does themselves. So all of this data is available somewhere on the web. If you know how to do scraping, how to write code, they're accessible, but they're not necessarily as defined. And if someone is not nearly guiding your attention at what to look and where to look, if it's not mapped, it is actually quite overwhelming. And so I had a few notes. Let me take very quickly. So the project came to us with quite a few challenges. So it took us about a year to get through all of on the water flow somewhere else. It is spatiotemporal. A lot of the measurements don't have also spatiotemporal consistency because it's only measured when it's needed, and then sometimes they don't. We had to rely on a lot of external data sets for this project as well. And this time when everything is changing, especially an organization like EPA going through so much in the last few years, it's been quite difficult to actually keep track of things. But yeah, so also a lot of the things that the portal includes are external reports. So we relied on like consistency and accessibility to external resources, finding them, gathering them, and also communicating the issues with the reporting and with the data that is not released by us, right? So a lot of talk, like spending time talking to experts about the owners or stewards of data, etc. So this is what the portal, at least the introduction of it, looks like. And I know lots of the projects will talk about New York City specifically. We have done many water quality projects on New York, but this one covers a much larger area, all the New York City watershed. Riverkeeper with its partners collect data from over 300 locations. They're actually quite well formatted, but they can only collect data when the weather allows it. And, you know, like temporal consistency of monthly recordings is one of the challenges of the data. So, you know, they measure until it's processed and come back and put into the portal. It's already old. So we're always serving historic data. So how do we, you know, communicate that information becomes quite a big challenge. And if you go to the site now, you'll see that it is trying to communicate to 4 different users. First one is the recreation. So if that day or in anytime soon, if you're planning to go on a trip around the Hudson River for swimming, for boating, for kayaking, whatever you do, the recreation site or swimming and boating site will has the relevant information for you. Fishing parts puts together to the state's regulations and advisory guidelines, which are actually quite hard to parse, strangely enough. The drinking water site gets updated annually because that's the reporting period for the providers. And then the climate change part, that one is released very recently. That's trying to highlight long-term trends over the Hudson River. Even when we're talking about a water body like Hudson River, long-term should mean over maybe like 100 years or so, but the data that we have doesn't go that far back. So even talking about actually short-term, or relatively short-term in the whole scope of climate change discussion is a challenge to overcome with this project as well. So I think water quality data is not easy to visualize. We spent quite a lot of time trying to find the right language, try to find the right visual grammar to make sure that it very simply gets across. And I would say, like with Sara, our design philosophy, most of our data visualization philosophy is always trying to take a step back. The data ink ratio, if you've heard of it, is one of our mottos. We always think about it. We always ask ourselves, like, what is it that we can remove from this visualization that's getting in the way, that is being obstructive, because the information that we're trying to communicate is so valuable, and it took such hard work to collect it on site and bring it to everyone on a platform. It is not our place to, you know, make an artistic statement. It is our place to actually allow people to do their work and get their message across. So the one on the left is a short-term visualization of they're quite similar, but the Riverkeeper's own measurements. And on the right is the larger roll-ups from EPA's data sources. They do a lot data measurements in less locations, but they're a lot more frequent. So, you know, relying on them for both long-term and very short-term data sources is actually quite useful. As an example, I was saying we work on water quality a lot. There are some of the samples. I'm very bad at keeping track of the work that I do historically, but these are the sketches that I was able to find. To get to that 2 little charts, we had to go through all of these iterations, probably 10 times more. And we presented to the fantastic scientists at Riverkeeper. At first, they yell at us that it's not getting their message across. We work on it again. We come back, and it creates this feedback loop where everything kind of gets settled in over time. But, you know, you can see some of them are just showing raw data overlapped with regulations. The ones on the right are showing a lot more processed information. So it's more like counting say days with dangerous number of events, but then how do you define dangerous events? If it's on a rainy day, it's different. If it's not, it's different. So it gets very complex. Visualization is a great tool to solve some of these, but also to make sure that these get across correctly is a big issue. And always I try to use a heat map wherever I can, but for this project it got rejected, so we don't have any heat maps. But I have it in another project. So as I said, like water quality has become a bit of a expertise and an obsession at this point for us. So getting to those visuals that I showed, the very simple few of them, actually not only took attempt making a few sketches, but in the last 5 years, we've been working together with Hudson River Foundation to visualize their findings on their state of the estuary reports, on their action agendas. If you're interested in anything about water quality around Hudson River, go check out these sites. They're very informative, not because we designed it very well, but just because Hudson River Foundation does an amazing job in collecting data and writing about it. But so I also just wanted to share that, we constantly do work around this topic. So back to the portal. As I said, like this, I don't have a final count on it, but I think the portal uses over 40 individual data sets. So if that was thrown at once at any user, it is actually quite overwhelming, and not all of it is relevant for everyone. So you can see that on the first look, our mapping language also is a little sparse. That is quite intentional because we try to get one thing at a time across. Even 2 things, 3 things, as they get overlapped, they become quite complicated quite fast. And I think like Sara does a quite incredible job at coordinating, say, color and design language between maps, charts, and the UX all together so that everything kind of flows together. The base map tries to hold as much information as possible so they're not coming in as raw data, which is allowing us to create faster tools, faster load times. And when you're trying to create a portal with over 40 data sets, load times is a big issue. We like creating maps that are responsive, that are not frustrating to use. That's been a big challenge, but I think it actually works okay. But as you can see, like on the left side, everything is kind of folds into accordions and allows you to explore them one by one at your own speed. And if you want to dive into more, what you see is not enough. There's more to do, so it's done through like clicks, and it takes a little while to explore, but that is intentional. And through this, I just wanted to show, like as an example, another one of the like mapping languages that Sara was showing. It happened to be the land use change that we've been working with a lot, like talking about a spatio-temporal change on an abstracted data set. It's like super interesting for us, and like I've been obsessing over how golf courses are changing upstate New York in the last few weeks. There's so many of them, and like you can really track where they pop up in land use change. It's fantastic to me. And the last slide that I want to show you, this is, I think, I couldn't fit. There were 2 more of these slides. I don't expect anyone to be reading this, but it's a data matrix that is kind of the backbone of all the data portal, listing all the data sets, their update frequencies, their data dictionaries, where that helps us understand where we are in the project and what needs to be talked about in all of them. And I'm not disorganized, so like Sara's ability to coordinate these things. But yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Yeah, it's a great look at how we can use data visualization to understand the environment and the water that's around us, which is so fundamental. So yeah, next up we have CityScroll by James Carroll and Michael Sheehan. So yeah, I'm excited to present their work.
Hello. Yep. And thank you.
Okay. How do we?
Yeah. How do we?
All right. Hello, everyone. We are James and Michael, and we are presenting to you CityScroll, an app for alerts for anything the city has to notify you about, meetings, rules, rezonings, contracts that has a deadline.
So we just met about 2 months ago. there was a Civic Tech hackathon that was fabulous. There were like 90 people that showed up. Nobody had a clue what they were doing. And basically, we all kind of wanted to work on civic tech somehow, but you know, so we all divided up into 19 little groups, and we went to our little rooms, and we had our little pizza, and all of us had an hour and a half to sort of figure out what our idea was and come up with something that we could show somehow. And then we had only 3 minutes to present it. So I saw 19 fabulous things, and it was a really cool thing to go to. So now, almost 2 months later, we're still working on it, which is really good.
And what we came upon was something that's very practical. You'll often receive notices, maybe in the mail, saying something's about to happen. You need to act by a certain time. But you might not be interested in reading the whole city paper of everything that's going on, right? You're interested in usually a few things, maybe an agency, maybe a project that's going on around your neighborhood, maybe a certain topic. And so we have alerts that come to you in a daily or weekly email if you choose. This is an example. We do have a website, CityScroll.org, but this is how we talk to you. So for example, here's a change to a rule for taxi medallions, right? Maybe you drive and there's a whole process here, right? There's a rule proposal, public comment, adoption. You want to be able to influence that and know when is this happening, where is it, how you can maybe join online, right? So these are the sort of notices that CityScroll gets to you. So this has a basis in something that already exists, which is the City Record Online. Some of you may know, there's some history there.
So basically, when our little group got together, we kind of didn't really know what we were doing, and we didn't know what our focus would be. So it somehow came up the topic of the city record, which I'm a New Yorker. I've lived here for a long time. I've never heard of it. So as it turns out, it's kind of important. It's the the official paper publication of the city of New York. This is the first example from June 24th, 1873. It serves as the formal vehicle for municipal notices and announcements mandated by law. This has to exist because of the New York City Charter. And basically, it is a paper that still comes out every day now in 2026. Good luck finding it, but it does exist. And this is basically where you're supposed to look for much of the city's information.
But there are some issues with it, with the accessibility, with how the search is, and also it's not comprehensive. DCAS will even tell you for bids, if you're interested in procurement, being a vendor under $100,000, they don't list it. So you have to go somewhere else. For community board meetings, they can choose to publish some meetings, but not others, right? So we need to gather all of this data elsewhere, and all the systems are not designed to be linked together. That's a social problem. We're not solving that, but we're taking in information from all of these systems. If you're interested in even just one project, just to speak of procurement, right? There's the city record that for the notice stage, there's passports, which handles the contract stage, there's checkbook, which handles the payment stage. You might not be interested in learning all three systems to go directly if you're just interested in one project. CityScroll handles this for you. So this is what cityscroll.org looks like when you get the daily emails. We'll either take you to the relevant actual website, but what we have is options to add to your calendar. Who do you need to email? Who do you need to call? Here's the search ID. Here's how you navigate the website. And a little bit under the hood, right? We love our open data APIs. We take from all of these sources. We find out, what's referring to the same thing, entity resolution. But really, what we're interested in providing to the user is, what's happening, where, what stage is it in, what can I do now? So I talked a bit about procurement, but this is also true for zoning. There's also a process which you could understand, rules changes, meetings, competitive exams, even if you want a city job. So we'll also expose the relationships that we find. A lot of stuff goes through agencies. So Department of the Aging, we list the vendors associated, the rules, the staffing exams. That's the big picture of CityScroll, but also we want to show you some particular use cases.
So basically, the City Record, the newspaper, was formed in 1873, basically by reformers that you may or may not have heard of, Boss Tweed and Tammany Hall and all that. They basically controlled all the city's money. So reformers came in and created this to basically shed light on procurement. So everybody would have the same information as opposed to it being hidden in some room. So around 2016, the city council decided to put this information online. It is in fact online. Can be a bit clunky. It's from 2016. But basically, if you use CityScroll, which looks at the city record, but also a whole bunch of other sources, there are 8 million people. So one of those people might, for example, live in Harlem. And they and their neighbors might have a real question about some health issues that are going on. So if you were to go to CityScroll, then put in, this is my neighborhood, I'm interested in health issues, I want to eat something daily or weekly or what have you, ding, in your email will come this thing. So apparently it's in Community Board 10, which is in my neighborhood. It has something to do with a meeting about health. And there's a link that I can send out to my other friends and neighbors because they're concerned about the same issue. I can actually join the meeting, find out what's actually going on, and I can testify. And this is not always easy, sending an email and making sure it gets to the right place. In this case, it's all joined together, so you just kind of use this, and then you add it to your calendar, you print out your little map, and off you go to the meeting. So of all the 8 million people, maybe somebody else lives in Brooklyn. And they are concerned about, they're a person who lives there. And they heard their neighbors say something about a zoning change. And I frankly don't really know what that means, but whenever I'm a tenant, I have been for a long time, when I hear zoning, it usually is not something entirely good. So I would want to, so I live in this neighborhood. And I make sure that I get all the references to zoning changes. So ding, in my email comes this, and I see, sure enough, on my block, there's some sort of rezoning something or other. So I can open the project, see what it actually is about. Is this of concern to me? Is it not? Either way. And then, yeah. And then, for example, you might want to, of all the 8 million people, maybe somebody else wants to get a contract with the city, and they deal with elevators. So once again, you can sign up, maybe one for one borough, one the entire New York City, whatever it is, your business. So you set up a little note to come in. And in fact, this seems to be something for an RFP, which apparently I don't own an elevator company, but apparently an RFP is something important and you have to reply to it. And now this is a correction for it. So without any effort whatsoever, like clawing at information, I just set up a little search to ding, give me a little email. And so now I can take a look at this and say so what's the change? What do I do? How do I deal with this?
So we're really also focused on accessibility. We publish in 11 different languages, and we're not translating the official notices. Of course, that's legal. That's a boundary that we draw. But just for the stuff that you need to take action in the case of competitive exams, what's the salary? What's the application fee? What are the requirements? We translate all of this to try to get more people to put in bids, more people to apply. And this is the screen that you get if you click from an email, manage your subscriptions. You could subscribe by place, by keyword, whatever search you do, just like looking at the relationships that you're interested in, you can search for that as well. And we're really interested in hearing from anyone who deals with city notices. If there are deadlines that you need to know about things like really in advance, if you're a nonprofit, if you're a vendor for the city, if you're a part of a community activist group, please talk to us, arrange for an interview, or you can email us at feedback@cityscroll.org.
Wait, was that feedback at cityscroll.org?
Yes, that's feedback@cityscroll.org.
Good, thank you. I appreciate
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So please go to cityscroll.org, put in your email us. We want you to be able to follow the things that you care about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, James and Michael. Whether you care about the health of your community or elevator modernization, you can go to feedback@cityscroll.org. All right. Next, we have Matt Keough. He is presenting Code Now. He is braving the rain. I'm glad to have you here, Matt.
Hello, everybody. My clothes normally aren't this dark. It's raining outside, very much so. So I'm assuming just
Yeah, just click.
right and left?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Codenow.nyc. How many people here are engineers, software developers? Okay, so a good amount. So this will land with a good part of the audience. That's great. On the QR code, if you just want to start off, you can get to the website just so you have it for later. But Codenow.nyc is a free project that I set up, getting some servers off of a government auction, actually, and we'll get into the specifications of all that. But essentially, it's a developer dashboard that the company I work for, Codenow, is providing for free with their software, where developers can all use the open source tooling that the CI/CD DevOps lifecycle needs without all the complexity. So I um, married that with free and dedicated it to Civic projects. So we'll get into it here. So when I say most Civic projects probably die at localhost, as your engineers, you probably have hundreds, if not, thousands of things that you've started to develop and kind of petered out or not rolled out in production. And that, as any developer will know, the toughest thing is getting people to use it, and then living through the production lifestyle, being able to make a scalable and dependable application. So this is a problem in civic tech, I think, where there's a lot of good intentions, but people aren't able to see it all the way through and develop and deliver and maintain a product for the long term, because it's just difficult to do. It costs money, so on and so forth, as we know. So this is the invisible part, and not every developer will know the whole platform engineering paradigm. But basically, it's the boring part. It's not the front end, what you see, the fun thing, the front end, and the stuff people get to click around and play with and have fun with, or just use for whatever their business purpose is. And most of the population just needs to use these tools. They're not really interested in how it gets done. So as far as the pipeline goes, again, I won't go too far into this because there's a lot of developers here, but all of these things below, building the image, running tests, scanning vulnerabilities, so on and so forth. If you're familiar with the CI/CD pipeline or DevOps process, that all these little things need to be done. And if you're going to be deploying to, Vercel or Replit or something like that, you're not going to be able to maintain all of the tooling and all the pipelines going downstream, especially if you're working with microservices and several different repositories. So, and this just, again, goes to the difference between, hosting something on Kubernetes. I don't think I mentioned that yet, actually. It's a managed Kubernetes cluster that, the developer dashboard hooks into, and then everything deploys into a managed Kubernetes cluster where Codenow manages the control plane, and you have a full Kubernetes cluster yourself on your own hardware. And that's how you would be able to deliver a performative, reliable, available, so on and so forth application into production if you're serving thousands or tens of thousands of people. And that's just how it's different than our Vercel or Cloudflare Pages or some of the vibe coding stuff that I still love to use for for certain tasks, but for other things that need data and need multiple developers and collaboration and stuff like that. This is just kind of the paradigm difference between what Codenow.nyc is offering as opposed to free versions of Vercel and Cloudflare Pages. So I was very, very proud of that logo up on the top right. It's the Codenow Cube logo, and obviously our New York Knicks, our champion New York Knicks. So this is the quote unquote team of DevOps that if you ever worked in a larger enterprise, you know that there's DevOps teams that take care of tickets, and you wait on those tickets for them to build the infrastructure, so on and so forth. But now Codenow is what serves this team. And I should also mention too that you may not have heard of Codenow because they are in Europe. The company's from Czech Republic. It was started by a bunch of ex-IBM engineers in the finance sector. And basically they've proven, through ISO 27001, and they have Raiffeisen Bank, which is probably something you never heard of, but they're in 16 countries across the EU. So they have to deal with all the banking regulations. They've also are deployed to DHL. And I forget the name of the company, but they have a German company that's regulated by the government as well. So the platform itself is proven, and they've been around for, I think, 14 years at this point. And I'm the first North American employee. So this was what I pitched instead of trying to get people to use Codenow by sales calls or lead calls or marketing or whatever else. I said, hey, let me just commit half my time to giving a free platform and just seeing how people like it. And my belief, and what I convinced the CEO of, is that anybody using it is just going to say, wow, I need this for work. So that's the quote unquote end goal. But at the end of the day, it's it's just free stuff that we get to share with everybody that wants to build good stuff for the community. And if you look at Codenow.nyc also, you'll see a few projects that I put out, one having to do with data and another having to do with project planning, which I'm happy to follow up on with anybody after this. So there's been a lot of talk about sovereign systems for NYC. I know Jordan had to talk about it not long ago. And just BetaNYC in general is all about having sovereign systems. And this is a 100% sovereign system. Those 4 servers are the actual literal 4 servers that are sitting in my kitchen right now. The bandwidth's provided by NYC Mesh, and that's not the dish, but that's a stock image of the dish that's pointing out of my North Bergen, New Jersey window, pointing to a supernode on 97th Street. Olmsted is the name of the supernode, and that gives 1 gig up and down, and very reliable as far as it's been so far for about like 2 or 3 months. But it's the server, internet, check. There's nothing on the outside. I am using Cloudflare tunnel just out of slight laziness and a little bit of security. But if we needed to get off of Cloudflare tunnel, we definitely could do that. So as far as the sovereign system goes, it really doesn't get any more sovereign than this, because also Codenow doesn't. There's no platform lock or anything like that. I'm sure that's exactly what everyone was thinking. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. It's an orchestration of open source tools that if you were to not have Codenow anymore, you'd still have your repos, all your code's yours, and then you just build around it in your pipelines. And the only configuration in the repo that is related to Codenow is a Codenow.yaml. So you still have the rest of your code, and if you want to get away from Codenow for whatever reason, there's no platform lock. And I don't know if I can say it's officially, but the founders kind of hated the platform lock aspect of IBM and built this out of for their own tooling. And they said, what, this is too much for us. Let's make this a product. So that's kind of how Codenow was born. So this is everything here. It's a little bit too small. You'll be able to see it. Codenow.nyc, there's a architecture diagram, so you could open the SVG there and zoom in on this, but we'll get into the pieces of it. This is the data plane. This is the the servers, everything that's running in my kitchen. So again, if you were to cut off Codenow and not have the use of Codenow anymore, you'd still have all your data all of your databases, all of your code, and all the components that you've built in your application. So there's no, again, platform lock or anything like that. I kind of got ahead of myself. So the open source tools, I'm sure you recognize all the logos there. I think I listed them here. This is what Codenow uses just out of the box. You get Prometheus, Grafana, that dashboard set up for every application and component that you build in Codenow, and it's ready to go. It's just out of the box that's what works. Vault, Keycloak, Let's Encrypt works in the background. There's no interface for that, but like with the applications that I built on Codenow.nyc, I just spun up my own Keycloak, and that's part of it. Basically, you make a component if you want to, or put as many components as you want in your applications, Docker containers, and you can deploy literally anything you want. And then the big part would be the Argo and Tecton for release management. So when you push to a certain branch, it goes into its environment, fully controlled RBAC permissions, so you can secure it however you need, and then make all your rules for if we push to main, it'll go to dev environment, so on and so forth. And again, this just shows that this piece of the diagram, these are your repos, so those remain always yours if you want to connect your GitHub, or you could use the hosted GitLab that also comes as well. And then you can clone to your own repos if you want to do that. But GitLab does come already hooked into it. But again, this just shows that your repos are your own. And this is the Codenow control plane that I've already, I think, got again a little bit ahead of myself in describing the orchestration of Argo, Tecton, so on and so forth. And that's kind of what Codenow provides, is orchestration of all these open source tools for as long as you want to use it. And maybe this is a duplicate. Sorry about that. And of course, MCP server. Now, this came from, I think a lot of it was inspired, I don't know if the developers over there will admit it, but a lot of it was inspired by just my own tooling on, but they didn't have an MCP server when I started last year, but I sort of built one just using the token from my browser, and eventually it turned into an official release of the MCP server. So there's 139 tools, so you can list your applications, trigger a build, so on and so forth. All of the DevOps stuff that you want to do is available via MCP server. And it's a screenshot of the projects portal. So again, you can look at Codenow.nyc and just scroll through the projects that I built. And I think I already explained all this. So, not right click, sorry. This is the console. So basically, you have your components, packages, deployment configuration, and actual deployments. So you need a dashboard where you see everything that you want. And making a component, let's say, you just click make a component. It'll create a component. If you have your your GitHub set up, it'll make a new repo in your GitHub. It'll scaffold it with everything that Codenow needs. Otherwise, it'll go into the hosted GitLab. But under that application, now you have a component that's completely networked. Certificates are taken care of, and all the Nginx and so on and so forth. It's all wired. So it runs on the Codenow.nyc is not the developer dashboard itself. That would be nycmesh.codenow.com. But Codenow.nyc is on those servers that are in my kitchen. We're gonna have sorry. Free while capacity lasts. A whole bunch of resources. And I think at the end of the day, just click the support thing, it goes directly to me. And if you want to play around, let's do it.
Thank you, Matt. We love infrastructure. I think a lot of, like Matt said, a lot of good projects die at localhost because they don't have servers like these to run them. So closing out today is Ashley Taylor with Good Standing. So Ashley, if you want to come up here. Yeah, going from infrastructure to community. So very excited for this last presentation.
Thank you so much. All right, well, it's great to be here. And this is such a cool community of, aligned projects, but also totally different. So I've really been enjoying listening to these and also see a lot of integrations with Good Standing and like the projects that are here. And that's sort of what we're about, is a platform to help people get more involved in good projects like this that don't sort of make it into the public sphere for different reasons. So we're going to talk about that. So this is just to say, what is our platform? It has different roles for different types of people. So you could be a volunteer. If you're a volunteer, you're just an individual who wants to get involved with something in your community. You can find different tasks or events to get involved with, different campaigns. You can earn different rewards, and we'll talk about that. If you're an organization, which means like a nonprofit or a B Corp or some sort of organization that has like an impact initiative, you can use the platform to publicize a campaign that has some sort of direct impact component, and we'll talk about that. And you can offer a badge, and you can have like a standard badge for your organization that anyone gets for any sort of volunteer task. And then you can have specific badges for specific campaigns. And you can create those with artists. Artists can also earn fees in the platform if they partner with brands, and we'll talk about that. And brands can sponsor campaigns. So a lot of what we're finding today are brands are sort of getting lost in the sauce of AI slop and all these different ad platforms that we have, where it feels like we're not really connecting to real people. So our whole ethos is how to help brands who actually have social impact as part of their mission or would like to, how can they connect directly with real organizations? And this model was very important to us because my background, I did a lot of work in like time banking and complementary currencies and different systems that had really good ideas, but often didn't scale because they didn't have this real world impact component. So when we came up with this system, one of the things that was important was figuring out how could there be like real world sponsors of campaigns. So before we built this, we did some case studies, and this came out of our venture studio, which is called Radical Systems. Radical has 2 eyes. And we centered our research on community organizations that were tackling systemic problems and had elements of the solution, but they're like up against such a huge myriad of problems that they weren't able to quite solve it themselves, but they had a piece of the puzzle. So our case studies documented, starting first with an organization in Baltimore that was trying to address the issue of farm to school, meaning why are kids in public schools not eating local fresh food? What's that really about? And there's all these different incentive problems. There's a lot of like political issues with the way that like funds are being distributed. And that was just one case study we did that went to a few others. And all of this research just first kind of grounded us in what were people actually saying are the issues and what could be built that could help people better address the root causes of the problem. And a lot of this are stuff that, it's become commonplace now that we talk about in terms of loneliness, depression, nonprofit competition was a big thing that was coming up. Like in Baltimore, there are 27,000 nonprofits just in Baltimore. So there's a lot of people who are trying to address the issues, but they're not necessarily collaborating. So that was one of the big things that we found. And then another finding, which again has become more commonplace now, social media is literally now paying people to fight online. Like this came out with Facebook, I think, in the last couple of weeks, where they're actually paying people to polarize against each other. So I think our platform is really designed in terms of a context of how do we get people to start to move towards the solution. And we were also looking at sort of the macro factors that are driving this in terms of a lot of jobs are going away, a lot of economic issues that are happening around the world for a long time. Things are getting worse. Mental health crises are rising. So a lot of our platform was built to address this in terms of how could people get out into the world and start to actually do things together that are actually solving the underlying problem. So you have like your nonprofit website, you have your donation portal. We believe you should have an extra element, which is about how people can get directly involved with your organization today and feel good by going out and making some sort of impact. So Riverkeeper, we actually worked with them for this park cleanup earlier this year. This was part of 150 different river cleanups that were going on the same day. This was in Red Hook. People came out to help with trash that accumulates in this park in Red Hook. And this is an example of a badge that you earn on the platform. You know, people met each other through the event. And then afterwards, there were different local businesses who sponsored people who came out for the cleanup. So, you know, you may have shown up, you cleaned up the park for a few hours, you learned about the waterfront. We actually had Riverkeeper was presenting there, and we collected data as part of the Riverkeeper platform. And that's another thing that I think this platform can be useful for. If like you contribute data to some sort of third-party platform, you could earn like a badge, earn a reward for doing that. That's something that another organization in Red Hook is working on with us. So there are a lot of different ways to integrate, where the point is that we feel like our impact right now doesn't have value within the real world, even though we all know it does have value in all these like other intangible ways. So we're trying to make a space where it feels good to demonstrate that and share that, and then also potentially unlock some real tangible value. And in this sense, there were Sunny's Bar offered a free drink to people who came and showed their badge. You got a free key lime pie, and you got a special price on a lobster roll, which are normally very expensive. So, you know, just sort of something different than going to brunch on a Saturday is the idea there. And so these are some other partners that we have. So one of them is a youth shelter in Taos, New Mexico. So they recently lost their federal AmeriCorps funding, which they typically were able to pay sort of community volunteers, but now that program has gone away. So they are partnering with us to find local businesses who will provide like sort of an incentive for anyone who works one of their volunteer shifts at the shelter. And that's what I've been doing the last few days, is calling around local businesses and seeing who would want to sponsor that. And that's a lot of what the work is. It's just sort of connecting the dots between different parties. And local businesses get the extra business from doing this, but also they're going to get a free spot on the local radio, which is very popular in Taos, New Mexico, maybe not here. So they're interested in doing it because they're getting free advertisement as well. The central one, this is Glamour Gals. They're a national nonprofit of teens who go to senior living centers to do makeovers. And they've built a really cool community where the teens who volunteer there are often getting like jobs from the alumni network. So they're already doing amazing. We're just kind of helping activate their community a little more, and then helping them find some brand sponsors for the teens who are doing this great work. And then the last one is a woman named Karen Blondell. She's a David Prize winner and is one of the Tenant Association presidents at Red Hook West. And she's using the platform to mobilize her community to do resiliency planning and tree care within the Red Hook West houses there. So these are just some of the things that we're doing. So all of those examples are more like individual nonprofits and how we partner with them directly. And what is most interesting to me, and I think like where the platform is going, is how to build coalitions. Because one of those earlier findings that we had, like in Baltimore, 27,000 nonprofits in one city, it's like, how do we work together? And nonprofits are all often a little scared to work together for different reasons and often have like competing funder bases, but also they really like it when we help them collaborate. Like we had an example with a nonprofit out in Long Island last evening where we actually got another nonprofit to sponsor their event with like a raffle prize, and they were so shocked that we were able to do that. And it kind of demonstrated to me that there's just a lot of value in having a third party, and that third party can be the platform, to help build that like relationship, to say, actually, we have the same mission and we want to support each other, and we just sort of need a different context to do that. So applying that at scale is building these coalitions. So this is something that's happening on September 27th. We're calling it Climate Action Day, and it's a coalition of climate-related organizations who are coming together for a day of action. They all have a different action you can take with their organization, and it's a free event, but we hope people take at least one action there. So if you're interested in that, it's on our website, which is, I think, on the next page. I'll get to that later. So how can you get involved? So if you want to volunteer or just join an existing initiative, you can look at what tasks are there. You can join our Climate Action Day, which is on September 27th. It's in Battery Park, this cool new venue that's like facing the Statue of Liberty. You can just come and sort of see what it's like. Or if you have an idea for a coalition or how to, build a campaign, you can talk to me about that. Ambassadors as well are maybe people who want to bring in different brands or parties or have like a specific cause. And then we also, so we have our platform, but we plug into other people's platforms via a webhook. So a few of our partners have started this where if you take an action on their site, it automatically can issue something on good standing. And then your user could like opt in and say, oh, I want to claim my badge and be eligible for certain rewards. So you can do things with us that don't even require people knowing about us yet, which is fun. And so the website, it's goodstanding.app. It's just a web app, though. You don't have to download anything. And yeah, that's my email. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ashley, for taking us home and reminding us why we're all here. We're here to build technology, but we're also here to serve the place that is New York City and the people that are New York City. So finally, I'll hand it off to Jordan for our last thank you for BetaNYC.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. That was really, really exciting. I learned so many things. I can't wait to go learn about testifying or join a volunteer opportunity or maybe host my project on a brand new platform. Thank you, Matt. So just want to wrap everything up, give one last plug to BetaNYC and come to City Camp on September 19th. You can get tickets at citycamp.nyc. And if you have not heard about City Camp, but you would like to know more about City Camp, you can sign up for our City Camp Ask Me Anything, where you're going to be able to ask our fearless leader, Noel Hidalgo, anything you want to know about City Camp and what's going to go down there. So you can sign up at beta.nyc/events. And here is the info for City Camp. Thank you all so much, and I hope you get home without too much rain.